Hello, hi everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm Claire, I'm the CEO of the SmartCrete CRC and really pleased to be here with you. Hi Elliot, really pleased to be with you here today to talk about innovation investment. SmartCrete's been on a real journey over the last 6 to 12 months looking at all of the enablers of the decarbonisation journey for the material supply space and the concrete construction space. And one of the things that we've identified as a major challenge is the market enablers. Typically, I think we're all very comfortable and all very happy to have big conversations about technical barriers and how we might address those technical barriers. In fact, I think it's probably something we can all be quite proud of as Australians, that we're really good at giving something a go, testing out the technical merits of ideas. And the challenge I think that we have here in particularly this sector is thinking about the market enablers. So we're very pleased to have been on a journey with all of you over the last few months addressing some of those market enablers and having deeper conversations about what they might mean in terms of solving them. I'm very pleased to let you know that today I'm actually joining you from Canberra, which is the lands of the Ngunnawal people. I'm very pleased to pay respects to their elders past and present and extend that respect to the traditional owners on the lands on which you all join us today as well. We're very pleased at SmartCrete to be inspired by the connection that our traditional owners have to land, waterways and airways. So yeah, we have a really fantastic program today looking into this idea of innovation investment. This is where we see one of the key market enablers in terms of progressing new low carbon concrete materials, the design and engineering components, products, processes, services, critically in order to get across that typical valley of death in the commercialisation space, you're going to need quite a lot of investment to get across the line. So we've got a fantastic program today, starting off with Alezeia Brown from Main Sequence Ventures to talk to us about how venture capital works in Australia. And then we have two supply chain participants, so Kane Salisbury from Hallett and Nick Holden from Contour 3D. Both of whom have very deeply been on the journey of releasing new products and processes and services into the market. So it'll be exciting to hear about how they have funded their growth and what some of the gaps and opportunities might be as we move forward. We very much want this to be an interactive session. We're keen to hear what you have to say as well on this topic. So if you have a chance, take out your phone and scan this QR code that we have on screen right now. This is going to take you to a site called menti.com, or you can just go to the site menti.com and enter the code 63711252. That's going to take you to a series of questions that we would love to get your feedback on. And we hope that that might spark a little bit of a panel discussion at the end of our presentations today. So yeah, please feel free to play along and scan that code and answer some questions that we have for you. Similarly, obviously this is a Zoom webinar, you're very welcome to add any questions that you have either to the chat or to the Q&A function. So please feel free to pop those questions in the chat as we go. There is a team from SmartCrete online to help answer some of those questions, but we'll also hold on to them for the end so that we can ask our panelists at the end to respond to them. So without further ado, I'd love to introduce you to Alezeia Brown from Main Sequence Ventures. Hey, AB. So AB is investment manager at Main Sequence, helping startups, researchers and entrepreneurs in the ecosystem to build product strategies, deliver products that solve customer problems, delight users, drive profitable growth. Alezeia, you must just have so much fun in your role. Over to you. Tell us what's happening in the world of Main Sequence.
Thanks so much, Claire, and look, really pleased to be here joining with you all. I'm joining from the land of the Cubby Cubby people up at the Queensland near the Sunshine Coast, so delighted to be joining from wherever you are dialing in from today. I guess one of the things that Claire has just shared with you is that one of the things is I'm not part of the concrete supply chain. I am in fact part of the capital supply chain. And what I'm here to talk to you about is a little bit about the capital pathway and what it means for folks that are looking to get funding for innovations as they build them out. So let me just see if I can share some content with you all. Claire, if I can just get an okay that this is coming through.
Yep, got it.
Awesome. All right, folks, well, let's kick off because I know that there are some fantastic speakers later on that are going to share their specific experience about building amazing companies focused on concrete innovation. So let's talk about the capital stack. This is a very high-level view of how you can fund a company from beginning all the way up to when it scales. And so if we start from the left-hand side, typically when people are starting their company first off, it's called bootstrapping, or they might get a modest sum of money from their family or friends to kind of get things moving. This is where we tend to see companies bifurcate. They either then look to take on debt as part of their growth strategy, or they'll move into the private markets, and this is where we fit. So the private markets are typically high net worth investors or investment funds that look to put their money into companies in return for equity in the hope that those companies will become the next Canva, or if you want, the next Hallett or Wholesome. And so for typically the next step is angels. These are high net worth individuals that may invest anywhere from a couple of thousand into a couple of $100,000 into a company. The middle part of the stack is venture capital, and that's where I'll be spending a lot of time today talking about. In VC, we tend to invest anywhere from several $100,000 all the way up to hundreds of millions. And really, we are bridging the gap of early stage companies all the way up to as they start to scale. The next step up from us is private equity. This is typically buyouts or very large investments. Private equity sometimes won't get out of bed for anything less than a couple of $100 million. So there's a lot of really interesting growth funds, both here and internationally, that do look certainly at the built environment space. And last but not least is the public markets. So that's listing on the ASX, or infrastructure funds. And these are typically the funds that will invest in, building your roadways, your tolls, and your big buildings. Now, in that capital stack, as I mentioned, we sit smack bang in the middle in venture capital. So I'm from a fund called Main Sequence, and we have $1 billion under management that we invest exclusively in deep tech companies. And deep tech can be defined in anything that's underpinned by science or engineering innovation. Primarily, a lot of our companies, they make physical things. So they are either making new materials, new foods, new autonomous systems, drone sensing capabilities. This can really be anything from software all the way up to rockets, of which a number of folks probably on this call would have helped lay the foundations for the new launch facility up at Bowen, because we're about to become a space nation. But by the numbers, what Main Sequence is we invest in these deep tech companies. We've got 60 companies that we've backed in the last 6.5 years. And 1/3 of those are spun out from university. So that is researchers that are finding something new on bench, and we create a company around them. And we go early, and we'll talk about what that means in the spectrum of how early you can actually get investment into companies that are doing some really interesting things. But again, you might be wondering, why am I here? Okay, we're a fund and we've got $1 billion to invest, but what does that mean for people that are actually innovating in the concrete and built environment space? Well, you may be surprised to know that there's a lot of funds like us globally. This is an eye test. You will see Main Sequence. We're somewhere around here, but there are hundreds of funds around the world that are specifically aimed at investing in decarbonisation technology, including built environment. That includes decarbonising the way that we make and use concrete and steel. And those funds have a lot of capital to deploy. So at the last check earlier on this year in 2024, there was $123 billion, that's $1 billion of US dollars, which is probably twice the amount in Australian dollars, of available investable capital in climate-focused funds to invest in companies that are doing the kind of thing that SmartCrete CRC has been talking about. And what's really interesting about that, of that $123 billion that was available in January this year, only $870 million was invested in green construction companies. And even more interesting, of that $870 million, only $6 million of that went into Australian companies. And I just want you to think about that for a minute. So if we've got $123 billion of available capital in funds like us that are aimed at backing amazing companies that are creating solutions that will help us decarbonise all of our heavy industry, the way we make things, the way we build our buildings, and only $6 million of that went into companies based in Australia doing green construction, you've got to wonder, is there a better way that we could be doing things? And so if you wanted to do the math, there's a lot of decimal points in there, but that means that 0.00004% of the available capital in 2024 went to Australian companies in the built environment space. Now, I'm not saying that you need to be venture-backed to be wildly successful, because you are going to hear from two amazing companies on the companies that they're building and the products that they're really innovating and bringing to market. So it is absolute proof that you do not need VC money in order to be the next big thing. What we are saying, though, is that there's a really interesting opportunity on a lot of capital that's available that is aimed at VC, so going early and backing those early stage companies. And how might we build the next set of companies that are able to complete globally and get access to that funding? That's the main thing that I wanted to kind of seed in the discussion for today. So how might we do that? There's a couple of ways. And the way that we think about it, most of all, is where the magic happens. And that is the combination of startups that have a really bold ambition. So we want to completely decarbonize concrete, as an example, or zero carbon cement, or carbon capture. They combine that with market leading research. And some of you may know that in Australia, we have top quintile research output globally. So we are, pound for pound, one of the highest producing countries in the world of research innovations. So imagine if we could combine that with the bold ambition of people that want to decarbonise the built environment. And we had industry partners that were able to take the risk profile and be the first customer. This is where we think that really interesting things can happen. And this is where I'd love to kind of provoke a little bit of a conversation that might come out in the AMA later. But even with those three things, some of the questions that you might be asking is, well, how do you get access to that 123 billion? And the answer is you need to be venture investable and you need to have venture scale. There's a lot that's been written on this topic. I'm just going to run through a couple of key things, particularly framed around the built environment space. So first of all, we need to have a massive opportunity. So venture investor and venture scale mean that we need to see something that is globally competitive and a team that wants to go after a global problem. So often when we speak to construction tech companies, particularly in Australia, the goal is to be best in Queensland or best in Australia. What we're really looking for is companies that want to go and expand globally and be the number one in the world. The second is that you need to have a great team. And that is really complex, particularly in this space, because again, you are making physical things. So that is, do you have the right science, commercial people, the manufacturing and the scale folks around the table that can really take you to the next level? The key thing, and I think this is why there's so much interest in investing in this space, but sometimes not always that follows through with dollars in the companies, is we need to be able to see speed to market, adoption and revenue. And so what does that mean? There's a lot that needs to go on technically about proving that if you are creating a new mix design, that it is stable, durable, and hits all the quality parameters that you need. And there's also a high market risk, particularly if you're going outside what is currently approved by standards. We've seen things like geopolymer concrete take upwards of 20 years to get approved as being part of the standards. And this is why we've seen a significant uptick in SEMs, because it's so much easier to use them in your mix design rather than going to a completely different mix. And so understanding what the adoption challenges might be is really critical to getting that speed to market. And last but not least is the strength of the value proposition. We tend to see that things need to be not just marginally better, they need to be significantly better than the status quo, use significantly less water, use significantly less emissions in order to win and make the customers change from one technology to another. And the last two, obviously, we need to be defensible. So how can you be super disruptive and also have a hard to copy position in market? And last but not least, particularly topical in this space, is capital intensity. So how are you able to make your products and fund your company growth in a way that doesn't mean that you need to go and spend hundreds of millions of dollars building new factories? It's really critical when you think about how you fund the company long term. So a couple of things that I want to leave everyone with before I hand over is kind of 5 key takeaways from a long-time decarb investor, and no doubt these might come up also with some of the following on speakers. Number one, it's really important to note that customers are evaluating multiple opposing solutions at once, and they're taking bets on which one will win. So if I'm a concrete manufacturer, I'm looking for low carbon cement and also carbon capture. I don't mind which one I get as long as one of them works to reduce my scope 1, 2, and 3 emissions. So we need to be really conscious that when you say about how you compete, you're not just competing with other ways of making, say, low carbon cement, you're competing with everything else that they might use in order to get to their emission outcome. Number two, if there is a solution which doesn't have a regulatory friction, it will most likely win early in the go-to-market and investor backing. So how are you thinking about this? Really important to think about, is there a way that you might be able to get your product to market in as lower friction way possible before you bring in the new product? Number three, having the best technology isn't enough. And to win, you need to be able to scale production at a price and a quality point that matters. I think more than concrete, we've seen this in steel in particular, with a lot of people looking at doing electrochemical processing of iron ore into steel. And boy, when you think about how much you need to scale, being lab is interesting, but you really need to show a pathway of doing 1 million tonnes of iron ore a year. So being able to create a narrative of how you get from that to the scale really matters. Second last one is bold claims need to be backed up to unlock customers. We've seen this time and time again. Particularly in the built environment space, embodied carbon matters. Having an LCA is really helpful, even if it's a very light on version as you iterate with your products over time. And absolutely last but not least, the techno-economics need to work without a green premium. I can hand on heart attest to the companies within our portfolio that have raised hundreds of millions of dollars have done so because they've been able to take a product to market that has higher performance and a lower cost. So cost equal or lower. Green premiums just don't stack up in commodity markets. And it's one of the things that we all need to work towards about how can we actually decarbonise the built environment at the same price point. Now, there's a lot that I just kind of whipped through there. Claire, I'm going to put a pause. And obviously, I'll be sticking around to watch our fellow speakers and then be available for Q&A at the end.
Thanks, Amy. That was a really great overview. I think it's really interesting to think about the fact that fundamentally, as an investor, as a customer, really developing those business propositions, all decisions tend to boil down to time, cost, performance. And even though you might be selling something in terms of a new fabulous, sustainability outcome, or for me personally, it's pink and it's glittery, that's not necessarily going to actually sell it. You have to be able to talk to those points of how are we improving one of time, cost, money, if not all three at the same time. Yeah, 100%. So fabulous. Love it. Thank you so much. Now we're going to dive into some real stories of success. And I'm so excited to have Kane Salisbury on the line. Kane is the CEO of Hallett Group. Kane actually joined the preceding entity of Hallett, which is NSP Group, back in July 2013, when he was appointed as CEO of the Mining and Construction Materials unit. And he was appointed as CEO across all Hallett Group entities in 2019. But a man, obviously, who's very well known to the concrete sector, previously worked in Boral in senior management roles, and across many other different roles. So without further ado, I'll throw over to Kane. Kane, we're really excited to hear your story at Hallett and how you've managed to bring some new fabulous products to market in your time there.
Thanks very much, Claire, for the introduction, and AB, great to get an insight from a venture capitalist perspective. We're going to talk, I suppose, a little bit more local here in South Australia. By way of introduction, Hallett, we're an integrated supplier of building, construction, and mining materials here in South Australia and a bit into Victoria. I've been around for 40 odd years, proudly South Australian owned and operated, 500 odd employees. So hopefully you can see that presentation I've got up on the screen, and I'll just...
That we can see your presenter mode.
Sorry, we did practice this, didn't we? Anyway.
We did.
All right. All right, hopefully that's better.
Perfect. Yes, thank you.
Okay. And by integrated business, we're across concrete, quarry materials, cement, building products, timber, steel, etc., etc. Uniquely integrated in the South Australian market. I wanted to take the opportunity to talk about a key project we're doing. Well, first I'll just start. Just talking about the importance of innovation for Hallett. So Hallett, we're a smaller business, I suppose, in scale-wise compared to our competitors. But innovation's really built into our DNA. It's a core value and it's a critical competitive advantage. If you look on our website, we talk about agile, innovative, and fastest. And a lot of people have that in their, everyone wants to be agile and innovative, but there's very few companies out there that truly do that well. And being a privately owned business by a single owner operator, we think that gives us some real advantages to really seize the day and be faster than anyone else. We're a small, by comparison, company in an industry dominated by global giants. Most of our competitors have market caps of 50 billion or more. And so for us, it's not just a nice to do. We've actually got to innovate to survive. And otherwise, the options for us are we're going to get eaten up. I wanted to highlight innovation comes in many forms for us, small and large, and the importance of having an aligned team that really brings that together and focuses on those wins at different categories is I think a lot of small ideas coming together creates great ideas. So it's been really important for us. And a key point I wanted to make that sort of relates to the project I'm going to talk about shortly is understanding the future trends and getting ahead of the curve. Is that really key for that first mover advantage? And certainly in our case, understanding those local trends has been just as important as those national and global trends. And we're talking about I'm about to talk about a project that's got some local flavour, but with some global implications. So this project we're delivering here in South Australia, we call it the Green Cement Transformation Project. It's around $135 million total investment, supported by a $20 million federal government grant and an industry first in Australia anyway, green certified loan. And effectively, we're bringing in some new supplementary cementitious materials to the market. We're bringing in a washed fly ash. So for the first people in the world anywhere, we believe, will be washing chloride out of fly ash at scale and regenerating that to grade 1 fly ash for use in concrete and mine backfill, etc. First time that's been done. And then we're also bringing an unconventional slag product to market from Nystar at Port Pirie. A polymetallic smelter, makes a fantastic slag product and has great potential into concrete and mine backfill in particular. So that's sort of our project in a nutshell. And I've got a couple of slides here. I'm just showing what we're building. This is our green cement distribution hub at Port Adelaide. That was the model. That is well in construction right now. These are some pictures, and when I talk about innovation coming in lots of different forms, we're not just building a dome silo, which has been done elsewhere around the world. We're building the world's first ever drive-through dome silo with integrated blending system built inside the silo, and we think that will create a global precedent from an engineering construction perspective. But that's just a bit of a sideshow to us bringing these new products to market. But as you can see, it's happening. Early next year that'll be operational. Port Augusta hub, where we're processing the SCMs and then doing the various blending and evaluating processes up there. Heavy civil works have started, and those couple of pictures there sort of really show the end product that we're about to start building, and that will be operational late this year. And that's all the outputs. But what I get to talk about now is, I suppose, the previous 10 years, the 10 years of innovation, the 10 years of hard work and graft to get that project up and happening and coming to market as it is now. So what I've got about a 90-second video here, which just gives a real insight to the products we're making, why we're doing it, why it's important for our business, and why we think it's got implications for the wider global market. And this is just delivered by our GM of Innovation Sustainability, Mars Capasso. So hope you can hear that.
Hallett Group is recognised as a major innovator in the cement and concrete industry in South Australia. Hallett Group has aligned its decarbonisation objectives with the Global Cement and Concrete Association Pathway to Decarbonisation. Hallett Group is committed to a groundbreaking journey to achieving net zero targets by 2050. A key component of Hallett's decarbonisation strategy is the substitution out of highly emissive clinker with low emissive supplementary cementitious materials, or SCMs. Hallett Group has identified the importance of SCMs and their sovereign scarcity. We are committed to a significant research program to identify locally sourced SCMs. Such SCMs are Near Star Fumer Slag and Port Augusta Fly Ash. A $5 million investment has been made to set up a pilot plant for processing these new SCMs at the Dry Creek facility. In addition to making significant bulk samples available for research purposes, the pilot plant has also allowed us to determine a scalable design for a full production facility. Using multiple feed and control variations in the pilot plant has allowed us to confidently predict the upscale production facility requirements. The pilot plant has allowed us to minimise the amount of energy per tonne for the manufacture of SCMs. Substituting traditional cement with fumer slag and fly ash can reduce carbon emissions by up to 50%. In both these cases, the use of local SCMs reflects a reduction in waste industrial stockpiles. This constitutes a double win for the environment. At Hallett Group, we're building a greater and greener South Australia.
All right, I'll give the propaganda piece there. Look, SCMs, it's not new, it's not particularly innovative, but what is the issue with SCMs globally is they're in short supply. There's nowhere near enough to service the market, and those supplies, those historic supplies, are declining. So our view, strong view at Hallett, is you actually need to create new sources of SCMs if the market's actually going to have the ability to use SCMs as a way to decarbonise the cement and concrete industry. At the moment, importing SCMs from other countries does nothing, because all that's happening is those SCMs are getting replaced with other materials. In Australia, we're sitting on 600 million tonne of fly ash in ash dams around the country. Globally, there's billions of tonnes in ash dams around the country. Much of that washed or slurried back in the day with salt water. So our project is the first time that's being reprocessed and re-beneficiated back to Australian standard and ADIC compliant fly ash. And so as we do this and we do it successfully at scale, it really opens up billions of tonnes of new resources. And that's why we think our project is so globally important for our industry. Just got a couple of points, I suppose, to sort of share just on our journey, our story, and how Hallett's have innovated on our green cement project as a particular example. But for us, these are some lessons that we sort of took out of it. So understanding the market trends and the implications years before our competitors. As I said, we're a smaller fish in a big pond, but it doesn't mean you can't fight and win. And for us, it was about understanding those trends, getting to market first, and really thinking about what the future was going to look like for our market here in South Australia, and then the potential implications beyond that. So as far back as 10 years ago, when just the first sniffles were coming out around the transition from coal-fired power to other sources, we started to think about what that future could look like and how we could better position ourselves for the future with those products. So we very early on articulated a plan and a desired outcome in the early stages back a decade ago. And AB touched on it, but we're a bricks and mortar company. We do stuff, we build stuff, and we get things done. But we're here to make money as well. So securing those resources was really critical for us to make sure that competitors can't cut our lunch, and protecting that future commercial value when you're undertaking heavy and expensive R&D is really important. For us, we're able to self-fund the R&D. We've got a very supportive owner and a very strong underlying business that generated enough cash flow to put funds aside to go on the gamble of this R&D journey, and that's certainly from our perspective is a great way to be able to self-fund these type of projects. We brought in the right expertise and people with real passion to change the world. Mars, who you just heard on the video there, and many others have come in, and people that have worked in the industry and perhaps been held back by achieving and innovating and doing interesting stuff. They're great people to target when you want to do something innovative as a business. I've found there's so many people out there that are just looking for that opportunity to do something and change the world for the better. Leveraging networks, industry associations, peers, unis, etc., really important. We've got a few PhD students that we're funding through. We've got a number of graduates, but it's really it's a community. There's so many things to learn from so many different places, and we've taken bits and pieces from so many different places to come up with the solutions that we've come to today. Progressively scaling up from laboratory to pilot and now to scale production. Can't underestimate how important that is. If we'd just gone from lab to full production, it would have been a disaster. It would have been an absolute disaster for us. So the learnings through piloting are so key. My last slide, just some lessons from our experience, and some learnt the hard way, some the easy way. From an R&D perspective, whatever you think the cost is going to be, double it. Everything takes longer, is harder to get. The level of verification, the level of data and supporting information to convince stakeholders, government, regulators, customers, specifiers, etc. You've really got to dot the I's and cross the T, and that takes time, effort, money. You can't be afraid to fail, but you need to learn and adjust at speed. That's really important. There's always going to be missteps. You're always going to take 2 steps forward, 1 step back. Just get on with it. Do it at speed. Pick yourself up and keep moving. As I touched on before, pilot plant scaled up learnings have been a real game changer for us in the optimization program, and a real critical step. And a step that's probably taken us 18 months, but 18 months incredibly well spent. I think it's improved the OPEX costs and the CAPEX costs of our future production operation by circa 30 to 40%. That's how important it is. And when you're spending $140 million, that is a huge chunk of change. Collaboration and a tight team and a motivated team is essential. Everything green is good. There's no end of people that want to help you if you've got an environmental slant to your project or your innovation. Banks, financiers, governments, everyone wants to remove barriers and help you be successful. Taking government and community on the journey has been key for us. We're taking some interesting products to market that have some interesting history in the communities we operate in. There's been a lot of work around making sure that we bring that community on for the journey. Same with potential customers. When you're spending that much money without a locked-in future user, you've got to de-risk that in any way you can. And so taking customers along that journey means we've got demand locked in from day one, ready to go. This is a real learning for us, looking for solutions far and wide, and to not overlook emerging economies. So when we set about trying to find solutions, we went to Europe, to the US, to Japan, all these hubs of technology and innovation, and we're a little bit underwhelmed. And then we ended up finding so many of the solutions in those emerging economies where the pressure to get things done and to create and make something out of nothing is much stronger. So a real lesson for us there. And a final thing, the current R&D tax breaks, they need to be much more attractive to really help others, I think, really focus on this R&D. So that's my 10 minutes. So that was it. Hopefully there's some interesting stuff there.
Very much, Kane. That was fascinating. I kept thinking, oh, that's the thing that I want to refer back to. No, you said something else that's amazing. I really, really appreciate that overview. I think for me, a couple of takeaways were that idea of really planning out your scale process, because in my mind, I'm constantly thinking about, okay, we've got this, lab tested, proven product. Let's go to scale. There's kind of that jumped process. So I think it's fascinating that you're talking there about the economic imperative to do that very planned, pilot level, then scale level. That was phenomenal. Yeah. And just, the idea about the green initiatives and all fabulous insights. Thank you so much for taking us on that journey. It was great to hear about your successes. So final presenter for today, who I'm sure is known to many people on this call because he's been doing some phenomenal things in terms of getting the work that they're doing out into the marketplace. It's particularly for any blockheads out there, you may very well have seen this in action. I'm really pleased to introduce Nick Holden. Nick is the founder of Contour 3D. He is a dedicated humanitarian who only knows a fast-paced and high-energy environment. Again, I think we can all agree that he's very high energy. Outside his passion for innovation, he's committed to giving back to the community, mentoring young entrepreneurs and fundraising for charitable causes. And his goal is to tackle homelessness and improve housing accessibility for all by streamlining the construction process, which is what is so exciting about Contour 3D. As a passionate entrepreneur from a young age, Nick's pursued multiple career paths. He founded Contour 3D just in 2020. So much experience, so much traction in just a very small amount of time. Now boasts a highly talented and motivated team working hard to revolutionise the construction industry with Contour 3D's all Australian concrete printing technology. And it did very recently win a Concrete Institute of Australia Technology Award. I have just realised that Nick has dropped off the line, so he hasn't heard a single nice thing that I've said about him. So let me do a little razzle dazzle. SmartCrete team, would you mind just checking in with Nick to see where he is? And in the meantime, let's pivot. Let's look at the Menti results. Thank you for that, Natalie. Great suggestion. I'm so sorry. We will find Nick very quickly so that we can get him back on the line and get him sharing the fabulous story of Contour 3D. Okay, so let's have a look at some of the responses that we had here. First of all, we were looking at where are people coming from. So great to see that we have a real cross-section of representatives there. So question number one was, how accessible are funding sources in your experience? And it's interesting to see that on the whole, we don't think they're particularly accessible. So that's a very fascinating insight. If you have further thoughts on that, you can still pop into menti.com and pop in that code 63711252, which is at the top of the screen. So yeah, really fascinating. I think this is something that we really need to be thinking about addressing as a sector is how do we get better accessibility to funding to support a lot of these initiatives. And I think, AB's example there of how you can present these ideas to attract that funding is really great. But fundamentally, there is a pretty significant shortage of many of these funding programs, particularly here in Australia. Should we move on to the next question? Other sources of funding, so great to see some ideas there in terms of industry, in-kind. In-kind has been a big one, particularly working with university partners. Quite often universities will offer very significant and valuable in-kind, which is great. Nick, welcome back. Here I am doing my jazz hands. We're just connecting to audio still, so give that a moment. Let's have a look at one more question and then we'll throw over to Nick once he's got his audio sorted. Do we have one more question then, Natalie? And then we can hand over to Nick. We still don't have your audio. Oh, there we go. You're online now, Nick?
I believe so. Fantastic. Sorry, you wouldn't believe that. My computer just crashed the second I was about to start. Anyway. And then,
why do things the easy way? I think, add a little bit of a shot of adrenaline. You missed my whole introduction. I won't introduce you again. Everyone on the line is very excited about hearing the story of Contour 3D. So over to you.
Yeah, fantastic. All right. And apologies, everyone, for that. So look, I lost all my sharing capability at the same time. So just let me try do that again. I'll just bring something up in the background. Okay. 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 Apologies. I'll try and do that in the background while I'm talking. So have you given me the sorry, Claire, to ask this on the fly? Yes. You've given me the capability to do that now?
Yes, you should be able to share.
Okay.
Yep. Brilliant. We've got it. Awesome.
Oh, you do?
Yep.
Oh, excellent. So, okay, I can't see what you're seeing actually. So you can see a shared screen, can you?
Yes. We can see a couple of photos.
Yep. So look, I'll just have a quick chat first of all. So look, Contour 3D started. We started this around about 4 years ago. So it was obviously a big journey to undertake. It was new technology at the time. There was emerging factors in Europe coming out and companies in the US. but there was nothing that really, there was no one in really Australia that was doing it on scale or outside of sort of a robotic arm. So during COVID, I suppose we got bored. I got bored. We sort of had limited work. So that's when I undertook, I used to do a lot of plastic 3D printing, for R&D for my other company, Modular Walls. So look, I saw a Russian company on YouTube randomly doing 3D concrete printing. So look, long story short is that sort of evolved over a few months. I built a test printer during COVID, sort of a small one, which was two meters long, 1.5 meters high. And being COVID, I couldn't get the materials I wanted, the control systems, the servo motors. So we ended up begging and borrowing and sort of hashing something together. And look, and we had fantastic results, first of all. So not knowing any of the mixed design properties and all the rest of it, but that gave me confidence then to build a larger scale printer, which we did. So, and that was ultimately the one that we went on to use on the block when we were on the block printing a structure in 2022. But again, that was made out of steel, couldn't get the right aluminiums, but and all the rest of it, but it worked unbelievably well. And being the block, we couldn't go wrong. We either succeeded, and we won, or we failed and they won. So that was pretty cool. But from there, I'll just fast forward now. We're sort of in our 4th year. We had about 3 people when we started the block after the first year, but now we're a team of 15. In another 12 months, we'll be a team of, we'll almost double that team, but we've put a hell of a lot of effort into, software. We've got sort of 5-6 people in software, design, engineering. We've got mechatronics engineers, electrical engineers, fabricators, all the skill set in-house to develop all our machinery that we need to use in-house and we need to develop, because there was literally, no instruction book. People that were doing it around the world, obviously, fair enough, weren't giving away, the in-depth secrets. So we took it on, and it was challenging. I would say it was one of the hardest things I've ever done in my life to pull together, very complex machinery, software, robotics, materials, and everything has to work in harmony. So yes, but we got there in the end. I'm just checking in, Claire, you can still hear me and my audio is okay?
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
Perfect. So I know there was a question in there as well about funding, because obviously you're right. Sort of funding at the moment, 15 people, all the machinery, all the developments, the R&D, and everything else that goes along with that can be challenging, right? So there's a lot, and sometimes you can't see the light at the end of the tunnel. But we caught up. We started 18 months after the world's largest, current largest 3D concrete printing setup, which is Icon in America. But we accelerated, within the first 2 years, not to their monetary scale, because they took on a lot of funding, but to their level of machinery, technology, and quality. And you've been down to the duplex. We get a lot of comments weekly, from international players, and I'm, so which gives us validation that we think that, our layer quality in some of our technology is absolutely world leading. Hence the fact that, over half more than over half our current staff base is involved in the IT and tech space in some degree. And we do that, because, I was going to say, the more complex we make it in the back end, and it's horrifically complex sometimes, but the idea of that is to increase the level of automation, make it simple at the front end for the user. I just really want someone to come up, set the printer up, it self-calibrates. We've got LiDAR sensors that scan the slab. We've got 3D machine vision cameras that actually look at the layers, and we're self-correcting the layers on the fly. So it's all about that usability, increasing automation every single day. And we're measuring, water contents, all the rest, slumps, temperatures, pressures, millions of lines of code, and some very complex algorithms to make the actual process to print a quality product, on the front end, very, very simple. So that's the idea. But to go back to the funding, and feel free to cut in on me anytime, Claire, if you need to. But look, I was very fortunate to have another business, Modular Walls, which do composite walling and fencing and noise barriers for the government. That employs over 100 people. So I could leverage off Modular Walls to, to fund the business, really, to fund the 3D printing business, to continue the development, personal funding. I took on $2 million of initial funding, but it wasn't so much for the money. It was a strategic investment to get some really influential people, into the business more so, and for them to have skin in the game. So that's worked very well. We've got Steve Waugh on board. I've got the executive producer of the block, and quite a few other high net worth individuals, very influential people. But I chose not to take on a lot of investment or any investment outside of that, so we could actually concentrate on accelerating our development, really, really pushing that. So every single day we're developing, we're R&D, we're testing. You know what I mean? And that was so critical to catch up. And then once you've caught up, to really have that pipeline, and we absolutely do, to accelerate past everybody, in the rest of the world. And not just to the point where you can go, well, we're the best, we're the best R&D, we're doing this, but R&D for the sake of R&D, when it's not producing a tangible result, can be a waste of time. And, it literally costs me $6,000 to $8,000 a day to wake up, but I'm happy to do that for the moment, not chasing unbeneficial revenue, that can't accelerate the company. So when I say strategic revenue is fine, we're taking on government projects, council projects, the block, and recently that you visited, Claire, we've just printed the largest house, 3D printed house, sort of this side of the equator. So look, and we're doing all that to prove the concept. We're actually printing Australia's first social house at the moment in Dubbo. The printing is starting today. And that is in conjunction with the Aboriginal Housing Office in New South Wales and with state government, the Premier and the State Housing Minister, direct involvement. So, that's really exciting. We'll do a fantastic job, because if we don't, I don't think we'll get another one or another 5,000. Yeah, so that's where we're at. And just to go on to the green aspect, I'm very passionate about that myself. So it is very important for us. And as well as all the other people, we do have 2 full-time senior material scientists. One of them was Boral's ex-technical manager. So we are working hard every single day, developing mixes to not only drive costs down, but to drive the recycled components up. Obviously, we're working on all the things that was mentioned previously, carbon capture. We're down to a very, very low cement content, obviously supplemented with other things and fly ashes. But what I might do, because a lot of people, I should have maybe ran this first. You can still see my screen there, Claire?
Yes.
Yep. So let me just run this quick video. Just showing the process of concrete 3D printing. It's not really concrete, I suppose it's mortar. We have a maximum aggregate size of less than 5 millimeters. We've also got some very clever engineers in here for the R&D, and you can see in the background there, we're using fiberglass reinforcement rods, but we're really working to automate reinforcement and go away from the typical norms where people are manually placing rods, by using recycled thermoplastics that are applied, as part of the printing process. So I know I would say we're removing trades. Are we? But yes, we are. But that's, home building, Australia needs, what's the statistics, 600 homes per day just to catch up, to support the level of immigration. But the skills shortage is one of the biggest issues that I see with sort of trying to scale the traditional methods. And, if you look back, the traditional methods haven't really changed for thousands of years. You can dig a hole in Egypt and pull a house out that was made of mud bricks and sticks. And building that house recently, and then we had the 3D house, and then we had the traditional fit out. It was horrendous, But, we can now, by automating the process, having so much tech involved, we can sort of offer kids coming out of school or other people that all want to do technology, or most of them nowadays, into a construction, technology-based construction application. So that's, that's sort of where we're at with that. We're talking to, thank you for yourself, Claire, for the introduction to the NCC directly, the National Construction Code. They're consulting with us to really sort of push that certification through, what parameters and measures are involved, because obviously every single 3D concrete printing company has a different take on it, which is fair enough. So I'll just pop this up in the background. So can you see that as well, Claire, or am I out of time? Yep. So that's the 3D. That's the 3D house that we have just completed. We did use, it was 134 tons of material on the ground floor. It's a duplex. The upper floor, I did use one of the family companies is a composite panel manufacturer. So that was composite upstairs. But yeah, so we've used obviously the flexibility of the 3D printer to create some really organic shapes. That's in the garage. Oh no, that's actually when you walk in the front door. The one behind is one of the garages. That's sort of the lower floor of house number 2. And you can see we've done tight corrugations there on the party wall that's flowing up to no corrugations on the actual front door. So just a little bit of a funk factor in one of the garages, just setting some patterns and basically it's because you can, it's a digital model. And I always say to people, look, the 3D printer doesn't care, it'll just do it, most of the time. So this is the other side, house number 1, and you can see there the party wall. We've chosen a different design, which was like a panelized design, and you can't see it with the light in the photo, but it is really parametric and it's twisted as it sort of rises up to the top. Oh, you can sort of see it there. Yeah. That's a pretty cool shot. That was on one of the outside walls of the garage. There's our senior material scientist, Damien, trying to push the wall over. Yep. But that was actually purposeful. We've put it doesn't look it there, but there was a 300mm indentation, I suppose, or arc in the middle there from top to bottom. And that wall there is 3.9 meters high. These are just a quick shot from Dubbo, and I'll run through these really quickly, Claire. So this is an overhead shot of an amenities block we did for Dubbo Council. And look, just to go on to something else, we're just about to launch this, so you guys got a bit of the scoop. We've recently put it on our website, but to drive material costs down, to drive efficiency up, this is our mobile batching plant we've developed. This was a huge job, and it's not dumb, and sorry for the concrete people on here. The traditional ones are pretty dumb because they don't have to be anything different, but this is hyper accurate. We're measuring everything, and what it does, it allows us to vary the mix throughout the day electronically to the absolute gram. And the hydration, and we can use local raw materials, wet sands, and our pixie dust. So it's really cool. It'll drive the raw material cost down because it's by around about 40% over traditional pre-blended 3D printing materials. So this is really exciting. So yeah, we're just about to start using the first one that we've manufactured this next week. So that's a really cool innovation. We're just about to launch our Generation 4 printer, which I can't show you too much, but we're using really high-tech, lightweight composite aluminiums. We've got some really cool tech coming out on this as well to speed things up, lower cost. So all good. Well, I'm sure I've taken too much time.
It's such a phenomenal story of success. And I think for me, and many people on the line, I'm sure, it makes me so proud to be Australian because I just think this is incredible. For anyone that's watching 3D printing and the explosion of technology that's happening around the world, I'm sure you've watched little sausages print out again and again and again. The Contour 3D sausages are the most beautiful sausages I have ever seen. Having watched all of the other companies around the world doing this, Contour 3Ds are stunning. You could just sit and watch that all day, every day. It's completely unctuous. I love it.
Thank you, Claire. Better than watching paint dry. You watch concrete dry.
Absolutely. And I think your innovation now in terms of that on-site concrete batching is really fabulous, and it's a step in the right direction in terms of concrete printing because when you're thinking about changing conditions as you're doing your print and the fact that you might need to adjust to changing humidity, changing temperatures, wind, all of those things, the fact that you're able to do that so precisely on site is really exciting.
And the level of tech we're using and the weather stations and all the sensors we're monitoring, and it measures incoming weather. No one will need to touch it. It's self-learning. It does it itself, and off you go.
It's incredible. Well, thank you so much, Nick. Honestly, such an inspiring story. And thank you also to Kane for telling all of the fabulous work that's happening at Hallett. AB, loved all of your positioning. If I could ask you all to come on, we do have a series of questions and we've got 5 minutes to go rapid fire and get through all of them. So I've got questions that have come through the Q&A and through the webinar chat. So I can see both of them. Don't think that I'm ignoring if you've gone in either one. I'm going to start with Elliot from City of Gold Coast, who asks, Kane, what's Hallett's net zero target as a business? And I know you said 2050, Kane, but do you have a broader set of targets to achieve 2050 net zero?
Not at this point. So net zero by 2050 is the goal. We're certainly doing a lot of really game-shaping things. Have we quantified the future potential for that in total? No, we haven't yet, but certainly in the future, in the near future, we will.
Yeah, fantastic. And great to see people like Mars helping out with that as well. Highly experienced. So Elliot also asks, Nick, in terms of Contour 3D, are you using low carbon, high SCM or geopolymer concretes, or do you see that happening potentially in the future?
Yeah, we are using low carbon, and we're down to about a 20% only cement content. Geopolymers, we've investigated it. It is really expensive at the moment to do that, and the process to do that is very difficult. So not out of the equation, but we are working on a completely different model, which I'm hoping to be 100% recycled. And yep.
Awesome. And speaking of the reinforcing as well, that's really interesting as a potential circular process. Yeah. Kane, in terms of accounting for carbon, and this is a question from Michael Bowie, how do we account for the energy to dry the ash in terms of the embodied carbon for the concrete?
Yeah, so we'll be delivering an EPD along with these products. So absolutely, all of those inputs get counted. We're actually very actively working with the Koreans and other stakeholders around a potential hydrogen operation to reduce that gas requirement. But yeah, that'll all go into the EPD numbers, and we think we'll land a fly ash product between 60 and 70 kilos per tonne. Compared to typical cement at 700 to 800 kilos a tonne. So
yeah, significant improvement. It's very impressive. Lots of really nice comments from people in the chat, so I hope that you're all seeing those great comments. I think that might have captured all of the questions. Yes. So AB, having heard these great stories of success in the concrete space, and I know that you focus on deep tech, what do you see as some pathways for companies like Hallett or Contour 3D to really lean into the VC space? Like how would these be presented really nicely, considering perhaps some of the challenges of the pathways to market for a building material, which is maybe a slightly slower sector?
Yeah.
Yep. Oh, sorry.
Oh, go Nick. Oh,
no,
yeah.
please go ahead.
Nick, do you want to go?
Sorry.
You go first.
I might come and see you
Okay,
afterwards. I'm ready to take on $100 million.
And yeah, look, probably, and that's a great way to start. That we typically see companies that are seeking investment super early, like when they're spinning up from research or just kind of getting their first kind of prototype up and running, all the way up to folks that will bootstrap, very much like what Nick and Kane's companies have done, and then kind of come straight out the gate and raise multi-$100 million. We see that in tech as well. So Octopus Deploy, which was a software company based out of Brisbane, did that. Guy bootstrapped from employee number one and then went and raised multiple hundreds of millions. And likewise with these kinds of companies. The flip is that we've seen companies in our portfolio, one that does infinite recycled polymers. So similar kind of large manufacturing, you need to build very big plants to process hundreds of millions of kilos worth of waste. And they started with an investment, one employee with $1 million of capital into the business to start it. And they've now raised well over $100 million. They've got multiple factories being built, and they've got lots of global customers with offtake agreements. So it is possible to build at both ends, really. It just really depends on what kind of risk as a founder that you're willing to take on.
Makes a lot of sense. Question here, and in fact, this is a question that I want answered myself as well. Nick, have you rolled the printer out to a market for builders to build houses for residential clients? And if not, how soon? Because I would also like one of your machines. So.
No problem. Thank you for your help over the. I'll do your red hot deal, Claire. But yes, we are about to. So this is our 4th generation of printer. It is so cool. It'll be the best in the world for that particular application with the best tech. So yes, we are scaling with that printer. We'll finish the first 2. One is sold. We're testing the other one before Christmas. And then we're absolutely going to scale to produce a printer a day, a printer a week, whatever is required. That in combination with a batching plan, and I don't just say this because hopefully I'm a pretty humble guy, but I really believe this will be a world's best printer for that sort of model, the gantry printer, and also a telescoping one for two stories, and it's really cool. But not just a traditional one. We're using some really innovative ideas, tech, and different methods. So
wow, the future is now.
so yeah, so
Amazing.
please reach out to me. So happy to share.
Well, unfortunately, we've got to the end of our time. I think, I could sit and listen to these stories all day because they're just absolutely phenomenal. There is amazing stuff happening in the concrete sector towards net zero, towards new products, processes, services. It's been so wonderful to hear about all of the work that Hallett have done in terms of really thinking about material availability going forward, how we use our fly ash dams to the greatest possible advantage for the concrete sector. So thank you so much, Kane, for sharing that story. And we look forward to continuing to follow the development of your beautiful dome and various other activities. And Nick, thank you also for sharing your fabulous story of success and these beautiful walls that you are constructing at the moment. They are just gorgeous. Alezeia, if people are keen to reach out to you to hear more about how Main Sequence can support, are you happy to be contacted?
Yeah, for sure. I'll chuck it in the chat. It's ab@mseq.vc.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for sharing that as well. I think Main Sequence is such an important part of the journey of development for so many companies in Australia, and it's great to see your leadership and the intersection between research and commercialisation as well, which has been fabulous. So thank you all for joining us today. This will be popped up online later on if you feel like coming back and revisiting any of the points. We're going to continue our journey looking into all of the market enablers of decarbonisation with our next session likely due for December, focusing on how we measure embodied carbon. So hopefully you can join us then. Thank you again.